Good morning. I have a special guest today, Joci Miceli. She's been buying and selling real estate for the last 20 years. We are talking about downsizing. I'm Joe Alch. I'm the founder of Acappella In-Home Care. This is the Acappella podcast. Welcome, Joci, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited. Well, this was kind of a last minute thing, and I appreciate you coming on. Joci is an expert in real estate, and I personally trust Joci in everything she does regarding real estate. You know your facts. You are a graduate of the Real Estate Institute of Credibility. That's a very big deal.
Yes, it is. It's an extensive further education accreditation from the National Association of Realtors. So it just dives deeper into all of the legalities, and I would highly recommend to anybody who is looking for a realtor that they find somebody that has that GRI designation.
Mm-hmm. And we have a neighbor. I have a neighbor that found their realtor on Facebook, and it wound up just not being productive. And so, do your research when you're finding a real estate agent, when you're looking into buying or selling a home.
Absolutely.
So there was an article yesterday, and it was released by Bloomberg. It was retirement communities are financed by munis pushed to the edge by the COVID virus. Costs are soaring for equipment and staff. Occupancy is falling in these communities, and short term, these long-term care communities are playing defense right now for COVID, and they're fighting to keep these residents in the communities. The residents are afraid, and they don't want to. They don't want that virus. The statistics say in the New York Times that 1/3 of all COVID deaths were in nursing homes, residents, or their staff. So it's very serious, and there's a reason people are fearful about moving into communities. The flip side, though, is now is a great time to sell. Interest rates are extremely low. With the COVID, a lot of seniors have been living with family members, maybe somebody with dementia, that it's just taking a toll on that adult child, or there's just so much going on. The adult child has work, or a special needs child, or they don't have the room in their home to have one more person, an extra bath, or they don't have the accommodations for that loved one who's elderly that needs those accommodations in their home. So we're going to talk about you've got an adult child, and she knows that she's got to do something about moving her mom or make some decisions. So what is the first thing, Joci, when someone knows it's time, I've got to move mom. She can't live by herself anymore. She keeps falling and tripping down the stairs. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think first you need to look at, every situation is different. Every real estate market is different. Largely across the country, we're still in a very strong seller's market. There's just a very large, particularly in Texas and North Texas, real, shortage in inventory out there. And interestingly, millennials don't want new builds anymore. They want the cool character of an older home. So it is a perfect time for seniors to start thinking about what's my next move? Where am I going to go? And what is my motivation for getting there? So maybe the house is too large. I really don't need this much space anymore. It's just me and my spouse, or it's just me alone. So you're thinking about downsizing. So there are definite, other options than moving to a retirement community, which those can be very expensive, the retirement communities. So a lot of adult children are looking at doing what we call ADUs, which is an accessory dwelling unit. If you have a large enough lot, you have to look at your HOA. If you have an HOA, you have to look at what the city rules are and the county rules are for building. But you can put, a small 600 square foot, house, an accessory dwelling unit on your property then mom, dad, or mom and dad have their own space, their own privacy. You have your own space, your own privacy, but they're safe within your reach. And that's an option. There's also, everybody's probably heard of the tiny house craze, which they can be mobile. So if you have, somewhere to park a little tiny house, and you can do that, and those range in size and price also, but you can get one for around 10 grand. So if you're selling, and if you are free of a mortgage, and that's all cash from your sale of your house, then you can put some of that in the bank to live on for the rest of your life, and do a little accessory dwelling unit or buy a tiny house.
And that's what happened 100 years ago. Our loved ones just stayed at home unless they had no family, unless they had no one to care for them. But it was standard. Grandmother just lived in a bedroom upstairs, and the family took care of them.
Right.
So,
and I think we're going to see more of that coming, down the pipe, just because of, I think we're going to see a lot of going back to the old ways because of the pandemic, and how people have kind of reevaluated their life, and their needs and wants versus just getting on.
And I know, just working with seniors and doing home care, some of the communities in Dallas, you can pay up to $500,000 just to move in.
Yeah.
And the sale is, you do get that back when the patient or loved one passes, but that's a lot of money,
Right.
And right now they've paid this huge fee to move in, but they're still isolated. Family can't see them. They're in their room. They're getting meals brought in a styrofoam box, and it's just not the ideal thing that people thought. They're moving to these communities for the social.
Right.
They're moving to these country clubs or yachts cruises on land, and they're not getting that now. So it is a good time to reevaluate. What are priorities? What does mom want? What does dad want? And as an adult child, how much do you want to participate in their life? And right now, a lot of senior communities, their loved ones can't even go see them.
Right.
They're waving through the window on Mother's Day.
Yeah,
And
it's real sad.
It's very sad. Okay, so here's some questions. What is an advantage of downsizing?
Well, besides the obvious, you have, less expense in upkeep of the home. You have less home to take care of. And then, depending on where you move, downsizing can cut your expenses dramatically. So, there's, it's just really kind of a no-brainer. If you don't need that space, why? It's always kind of blown my mind why people, when the kids go away, go build a 5,000 square foot house. Why?
I know.
But again, you have to look at your family situation. A lot of adults or grandparents' age or whatever, seniors have huge families that come in town, and they need somewhere to stay. So that may be why they want to keep the big house. But if that's not your not your need, then get rid of it. Downsize.
Well, in doing home care, we see a lot of clients that are hoarders. Not to the extent of the show, but what do you say to those people? I've just got so much stuff. What? I don't even know where to start.
Well, I tell my young buyers from the get-go, the millennials, the 9-year-olds, I tell them, I said, do yourself a favor when you're packing up your apartment. If you haven't used it in a year, donate it. You don't need it. If you haven't used it in a year, and that's just my rule of thumb. So start young and get rid of, everything that you haven't touched in a year. And that way you don't end up in your 50s with all of this stuff. Now, we hold on to things because we think our kids may want it. They don't. Usually they don't. But, you just keep a couple of, keepsakes, and just, ask your kids as you're going through things. It's hard for seniors to get rid of that emotional attachment to some things, but you need to start there and start getting rid of everything that you have held on to in order to make your transition to a smaller place easier.
Okay, so are we going to pay cash? What is the best way? Okay, my home's paid off. I need some cash to live on, and I don't want to sell it. So what should I do?
Well, there's a lot of different options. I think probably you need to talk to your financial advisor about the tax implications and those types of things. It really depends on each individual's situation, but you can do a cash out refi. Interest rates are crazy low. I mean, they've never been this low. If you think about just in the 80s, like 1981, interest rates were 17%. I mean, we just had a drop, I think it was yesterday, and interest rates on a 30-year conventional are 3.15. That's amazing. I mean, it is truly amazing, and it's predicted to even go lower.
Wow.
So, it is a great time to buy, and it's a great time to sell. So you can, and refinancing, because just a couple of years ago, interest rates were over 4.25. So you're saving, just to refi, you're saving a point. So you can do a refi, cash out, take half of the equity of your home if you need that to live on. Say you got 10, 15 years life expectancy and you have a $500,000 appraisal, take $250 out, and, depending on your lifestyle, you can live pretty long on that.
Okay, so I've been in my home for 30 years. So how should I prepare to move? I've made the decision with my adult children, or I've just made the decision, you know what, I want to move to something smaller, more than I can handle. So how do I prepare for that? What do you recommend?
Well, again, the first thing is purge. Get rid of everything that you can get rid of. And then think about, again, depending on where you are in your life stage, what your needs are. Do you want to stay in the same community? A lot of seniors do want to stay in the same community. They've been there for 30 years and they have a 3,200 square foot house, and really all they want now is about 1,800 square feet. So, you need to, it all depends on the market and where you are, but the first thing is to just get rid of everything that you can get rid of and determine what size of home you want to go to. Does it have to have 2 bathrooms? Are there 2 of you still? I know there's no way I could live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with my husband. 1 bathroom would not cut it. But if you just had an extra half bath, that would cut it. So, you need to look at all those different things that you want. Talk to your financial advisor, determine, are you going to pay cash for it? Or because interest rates are so low, does it make sense to take a 15-year note out? Those types of things. Get everything, down on paper before you list your home, because nothing can scare not just seniors but any seller faster than not being prepared, and not being prepared for selling in 24 hours. And again, it's a seller's market. If you're priced right, you're going to sell fast. So you got to have your ducks in a row.
And that's what happened to us. My husband and I, our first house, we sold in 2 days. We did not plan. It needed lots of work. And so we were forced to find a house super quick. And I did not like that feeling.
You often end up with something you don't want, So yeah, you got to really plan. For sure. Again, particularly in this market as a seller, if you're priced right, you're going to go fast.
Well, and just a question on, say somebody does want to downsize to a smaller home, and just looking at, they need some of those bars, and maybe they need a shower that is more, it's just more conducive for a senior as we age in place. So what would you recommend? How would you help that elderly or person that wants to be in a home, does not want to move to a senior living community, they want to stay in home? What would you recommend there?
That they want to downsize to a smaller home? Well, what I do with all of my buyers is I have a buyer assessment survey, and I give them that first. So then, and it's often, I give the husband and the wife, if there's a couple, each their own, and then they come and compare notes, and they can sometimes be at opposite ends of what their needs and wants are. So getting that done first before we start on our search makes all the difference. So they can determine, do I have to have a walk-in shower, or, does she want a bathtub? So all those different things. Putting bars, grip bars and those, that's easy to add. That's something that you can add to any home. But you just need to, look at, is one of them in a wheelchair? Are the doors, some of our older homes don't have wide enough doors for that. So all those things. And, and there are new builds now that are geared toward multi-generational living. So they actually have a separate apartment for the aging mom and dad, and it gives them their privacy. They have their own entry. They have all their own stuff, but they have a common wall with the family, the daughter, son, or their family.
Well, and I'm even seeing, I live in an older neighborhood, and I'm even seeing some of our neighbors are putting elevators in.
Yes.
And one other thing too, I never thought about this until purchasing the last house, with how important it is to have a master downstairs.
Yes.
And tell me about that. Why is that important as we age in place?
Well, I don't like going up the stairs at my age. So, the older you get, stairs are hard on your body, hard on your knees. Interestingly, Texas is, it's almost a demand that the master is on the first floor. But, Midwest, a lot of the other rest of the country, all the sleeping quarters were upstairs and the living space was downstairs. But, if something that you want to look for as you age and really resale value in Texas at least, is having that master, or the ability to put a master on the first floor is huge. Is definitely something that seniors want to look for.
Okay. And so should I consider something like a tiny house in my retirement? I know there's an article that you presented to me. It was great. What is the ideal customer for a tiny house?
I think that it's somewhat, you have to have a bit of nomadic kind of personality. I think that you have to, have some adventure in your personality, and also willing to live in a pretty small space, because they are small. But they have developed some also that have the sleeping quarters on the first floor. Originally, when the tiny house came out, the sleeping quarters were, a loft. Right. But they have got some new designs out there that everything is on just one floor. The mobility of it is super cool, because you can kind of go see the country with your little tiny house in tow. But again, you have to look at the different municipality rules and HOA and all that kind of stuff to see if they allow it. But if you have a big enough lot, you can park your tiny house on your daughter's lot. And then when y'all don't like each other anymore, you can move real fast.
And we've had clients that have moved to a facility or a senior community that starts with independent living all the way to nursing home care, and they hate it. They're there for 3 months and decide they want to move back.
Yeah.
And
that's a loss of money. I mean,
it's a loss of money and time. So let me ask you this. Sally has decided, you know what, now's the time. Interest rates are so low, Mom. Your house is a perfect neighborhood. This is sought after. If that house is going to sell quickly, you put the chicken before the egg,
right,
the whole thing. Should they have an idea in mind of where they want to go? How important is it to have that next step decision made prior to listing your house?
I think it depends on if you have family you can go to. If you're living in the same city, town, or proximity to family that said absolutely you can come live with me and then we'll figure out the next step, then not that big of a deal. But if you don't, you definitely have to have a plan, because you would end up going into a rental, which sometimes can be a lot more money than you ever thought about, depending on the market. So yeah, I mean, it depends on your situation again. But if it's a hot market and grandma and grandpa's house, is worth a fortune and you could sell really fast, do they have somewhere to go? And then, if they do, then you can take the money out of that house and either, build an ADU on the land or buy a tiny house or take your time finding that downsized, smaller property.
Those are great tips. Joci, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Next week, we're going to talk with someone who it's the next step. Now you're moving, you're selling your house and helping find that right community. If it is, you're going to be moving to a community and not a smaller home. So we're just talking about moving. This is a great time to sell, great interest rates, and but there are a lot of things to think about, and we just want the best for our seniors. So thank you, Joci. How can we get in touch with you?
So my website is justcalljoci.com. And you can email me at Joci Miceli at justcalljoci.com.
Thank you so much, Joci.
Thank you for having me.
Great information.
All right.
I appreciate you.
Thanks.